It's December 8th, 2024. We find ourselves in Arrowhead Stadium for a Sunday night matchup between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. We're in the fourth quarter. The score is 17-16. The Chiefs are lining up for a field goal for the win, and you just knew they were going to win. The Chiefs knew it, the fans inside Arrowhead Stadium knew it, perhaps the millions at home watching it knew it too. The Chiefs keep winning games no team should so frequently, leaving opposing fans pointing to everything from dumb luck to favorable officiating to explain this maddening inevitability. The Chiefs can't keep getting away with this. Or can they? The Kansas City Chiefs are now in an astonishing 15-game win streak in one-score games. In the world of the NFL, few scenarios ignite as much passion and debate as the infamous one-score game. Every close finish sparks discussion about luck versus skill. But how much do these nail-baiting contests really reveal about a team's true strength? So today we're going to finally solve this, and we're going to unravel the myth surrounding one-score games and explore their significance in shaping team narratives throughout the season. And we're going to settle this once and for all: if winning a one-score game is a useful stat or merely an emotionally charged statistic. But first, what is a one-score game? A one-score game refers to a contest in which the difference in points between two competing teams is equal to or less than a single scoring play. A one-score game in the NFL is the score difference between two teams is 8 points or less. This means that either team can win with just one scoring play, such as a touchdown or field goal. For example, if the score is 24-21, that is considered a one-score game, because the teams are within 3 points of each other. It has to be said that winning a one-score game is incredibly valuable in the NFL. And this is purely because of the black and white nature of how the league is constructed. Because of a 17-game season, there are many cases where teams will end up with the same record. It's so common, in fact, that the NFL has a list of 12 tiebreakers to determine the better record between two teams. This determination can impact playoff seeding, playoff qualification, who do you play in the following season, or influence their draft position in the following year. So a team's record in one-score games over the course of a single year can substantially impact a team's overall failure or success in a single season. That seems pretty clear. It might even be obvious. In the NFL, wins do matter. For example, the 2022 Minnesota Vikings had a record of 11-0 in one-score games, and it was a crucial factor in their overall 13-4 record, which allowed them to host a playoff game, which...
Game on the line. Cousins, Hawkinson, he is not gonna get there!
They lost. Oh, Kirk Cousins. You love him or you hate him, right? So the real question we're attempting to explore is whether a team's performance in one-score games indicates whether they are a good team or not. But to even answer that question, we need to know, how frequently do one-score games happen? And the data on this is really surprising. In the 2024 season alone, through 13 weeks, there have been 388 games played. And out of those, 307 of them have been decided by 8 points or less, a staggering 79% of all games in one season so far this year. That's crazy, because it means that NFL teams will likely play in numerous close games. In fact, it's common to have anywhere between 6 to 14 games end with a score that's within one possession. And honestly, it makes sense. Football is an unusual game, but it's fundamentally about capitalizing on possessions. In a typical NFL game, a team usually only has 10 to 12 chances to score. Various factors such as downs, bad throws, fumbles, and penalties play a significant role. Even a great team can find themselves in a tightly contested match if they struggle to convert in their limited scoring opportunities. The 2024 Kansas City Chiefs are the biggest example of this. Over the past 2 years, they have now won 15 straight one-score games. Because of the volume of one-score games, it's pretty fair to ask the question, is there a skill in one-score games, and does that help us determining if a team is good or not? Well, that actually brings us to a really important point about one-score games. That with so many games being so close, context has to matter. Now, the conversation between success in one-score games often splits people into two camps. Is it luck or is it skill? And honestly, there are arguments for both sides. We have to admit that luck does play a factor in the success of close games. The 2024 Kansas City Chiefs may be the biggest example of this, as they have had remarkable luck this season. I even found a video on YouTube by Mac McClive that does a great job in explaining it, and I'll leave a link in the video description. But the Chiefs haven't been just lucky.
The kick will come from Matthew Wright.
Now, I personally hate that a bank shot doink was how the Chiefs won their game on Sunday night against the Chargers. But we do have to give some context. While the Chiefs have been very lucky in many of their games this season, they've also shown a combination of skill, strategy, and situational awareness that puts themselves in position to win games. Take the Chargers game for example. When the Chiefs had the ball to drive down the field to score and win the game, there was 4 minutes and 35 seconds left. The Chargers couldn't stop them once, even with 3 timeouts available, to the point where a third down conversion ended up giving the Chiefs the opportunity to win the game, even if it was a bad field goal attempt. It is true that teams that excel in clock management, defensive schemes, and play execution tend to perform better in close games. This is most true for some of the great quarterbacks in NFL history. Like, did you know Tom Brady, what many consider to be the greatest quarterback of all time, is 91-43 in games closer than 8 points. Peyton Manning is 77-40 in these same games. And Patrick Mahomes is a staggering 42-17. So how much of it is skill and how much of it is luck? So it kind of leads us to another question. How often do great teams win decisively? And that brings us to maybe some of the most interesting data that I found. I found this fascinating study by the 33rd team that goes into how often great teams win against bad teams. And the data on this might finally give us an answer. So how often do great teams win against bad teams? Well, with a cumulative 146-11 record since 2010, we can basically confirm great teams almost always beat bad teams. It's a thoroughly unsurprising result. However, what do you think the average margin of victory is? Well, they did a study. Of the top 4 teams that ended up playing against bad teams in a season, teams will win by 21 or more points about 15% of the time. And between an average margin of victory of 2 scores, they win about 53% of the time. Great teams either lose or win by under 7 points about 10% of the time. And between 10 and 7 points, 22% of the time. So that means a bad team will find themselves against a great team within 1 to 2 scores about 33% of the time. This means that great teams can still find themselves within a 1-score game even against a bad team, but they will still win the game, suggesting that it might be more about skill than luck in these close games. This dynamic suggests that while 1-score games can significantly impact a team's record, it doesn't necessarily reflect the team's overall strength or performance. So, what is the best measure of a team's overall performance? When you look at a team's record, it really can only tell you how many games a team has won or lost in a particular season. So, how do we determine if the team is good or not? Well, the best statistic that we have in football to measure this would be point differential. Point differential refers to the difference between the total points a team scores and the total points they allowed over a season. Point differential is a really important statistic in football because it provides a really comprehensive picture of a team's overall performance by not only looking at the team's wins and losses, but also considering the margin of victory in each game. It essentially indicates how much better a team is performing compared to their opponents, beyond just their win and loss record. When it comes to comparing the Kansas City Chiefs to teams with a similar record, there was a great chart done by Mike Sando of The Athletic that shows the Chiefs' point differential through 13 games is plus 56, which is by far the smallest of any 12-1 team in NFL history. However, that doesn't tell the full story. When you compare their point differential to the rest of the league, the Chiefs are marginally better, ranking out above most of the teams in the NFL. So it might be fair to say the Chiefs are a good team, as they currently rank 11th in point differential. However, the Chiefs are not looking to be a good team. They're wanting to win the Super Bowl. So why should we compare them to teams that won't even be in the playoffs? When you chart it out amongst teams projected to make the playoffs, you can see that they are among the worst teams that will have the opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl, being miles away from teams such as the Lions, Bills, or even the Ravens. Of the teams the Chiefs will have to face in the playoffs, they have demonstrated a higher level of consistency and talent throughout the regular season. This discrepancy becomes much more evident when looking at the key stats like offensive and defensive point differential, which signals a team's ability to succeed under playoff pressure. As a result, while any team can get hot in the postseason, the likelihood of an underperforming team making a deep playoff run remains slim against better prepared and more skilled opponents. Is point differential a perfect interpretation of the strength of a team and their win percentage? No. Nevertheless, it is one of the best counting statistics we have that represents the quality of a team, and it shows you pretty decisively who are the contenders and who are the pretenders. So it seems that we finally have our answer. One-score games in the NFL can significantly impact a team's overall season record. However, it's an incredibly difficult stat to use to determine the quality of a team and projecting their performance moving forward, as it often is nuanced and subject to various factors such as luck or skill. In fact, I think it might even be a worthless stat, because all it can really tell you is how many times a team has won that year. That's it. Instead, the best way to assess a team's overall performance is point differential, because it provides insight into how dominant or competitive a team is over the course of a full season. And when you look at the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs, yeah, they aren't that good, despite their record. Now, there is some evidence that their wins have been more about skill than luck. However, when you match them up against playoff teams, we're going to see just how well they perform. And I think I have a pretty good idea of how that is going to go.